Dr. Matthews, if you touch that patient, I will end your career. Do you understand me?
Doctor! His pressure's spiking, he's coding!
Help me, please. He's dying, he's a veteran, he served his country.
Matthews, step back, that's an order!
No! I'm not letting him die! I'm not! Sir, release the dead now!
You just destroyed everything, Dr. Matthews. I'll see you in court.
Then I'll see you there.
In exactly 43 seconds, Dr. David Matthews will make a decision that destroys his entire life. A decision that costs him $2 million, his medical license, and 18 years of building a career he loved. But if he doesn't make this decision, a 72-year-old Vietnam War veteran will die on a cold hospital floor in the next 3 minutes. This is his body cam footage. This is what really happened. And this is the story that one of Philadelphia's most powerful hospitals tried to bury forever. Because sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything. March 16th, 2023. St. Mary's Hospital, Philadelphia. 7:23 in the morning. Dr. David Matthews had just started his shift when paramedics rushed through the emergency room doors with a patient who would change his life forever. The patient was unconscious, severely injured, and had no identification. No wallet, no phone, no emergency contacts, just dirty clothes, a faded Vietnam War veteran cap, and the smell of too many nights sleeping on the street. Most of the hospital staff saw another homeless patient, another uninsured case, another problem. But Dr. Matthews saw something different. He saw the tattoo on the man's forearm, 101st Airborne 1968. Dr. David Matthews was 46 years old. Harvard Medical School graduate, 18 years in emergency medicine, father of 3 daughters. He'd spent nearly 2 decades saving lives in one of Philadelphia's busiest emergency rooms. He'd seen everything: gunshot wounds, car accidents, heart attacks, overdoses. But he'd never faced a moment quite like this. His own father had served in Vietnam with the 101st Airborne Division. He'd grown up hearing stories about the Screaming Eagles, about brothers in arms, about the bond that never breaks between soldiers. So when he looked down at this unconscious veteran lying on the gurney, he didn't see a billing problem. He saw his father. He saw a hero. He saw someone who'd served his country and ended up forgotten, alone, dying on the streets of the very nation he'd fought to protect. And he made a quiet promise right there in that moment. "You're in good hands, soldier. I've got you." He had no idea how much that promise would cost him. 30 minutes later, the CT scan results came back. And what Dr. Matthews saw made his blood run cold. The veteran, whose name he would later learn was Thomas Cooper, 72 years old, homeless for 6 years, had a massive subdural hematoma. In simple terms, his brain was bleeding. Badly. Without immediate surgery, the pressure building inside his skull would kill him within 12 hours. Maybe less. This wasn't a wait-and-see situation. This wasn't something they could manage with medication. Thomas Cooper needed emergency neurosurgery. He needed it now. And he needed it to be perfect, because one mistake meant death or permanent brain damage. Dr. Matthews immediately called for a surgical consult. He started prepping the paperwork for emergency surgery. He was moving fast because every minute mattered. And that's when Linda Ferguson walked into the room. Linda Ferguson was the hospital administrator, MBA from Wharton, former Wall Street executive. She ran St. Mary's Hospital like a business, because to her, that's exactly what it was, a business. She pulled Dr. Matthews aside into the hallway, checked her tablet, and delivered the message that would set everything in motion. This homeless patient in Bay 7 needs to be discharged. Now, Dr. Matthews was confused. Discharged? The man was dying. He explained the diagnosis, the brain bleed, the urgent need for surgery, the 12-hour window they were already burning through. Linda's response was ice cold. He has no insurance. No Medicaid. No Medicare. He's what we call a billing black hole. Neurosurgery costs this hospital $47,000 per operation, and we both know we'll never collect a single penny from him. Dr. Matthews couldn't believe what he was hearing. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "We just let him die?" We stabilize him, Linda said, and we transfer him to County General. That's their job. St. Mary's is a private hospital. We have shareholders. We have investors. We can't afford to run a charity for every homeless person who walks through our doors. Transfer him. Dr. Matthews knew what that meant. Thomas Cooper wouldn't survive an ambulance ride to County General. The bouncing, the movement, the time delay, his brain was bleeding right now. A transfer was a death sentence with extra steps. It was a way for the hospital to say we didn't let him die here, while knowing full well he'd die somewhere else. Dr. Matthews refused. I'm not transferring him. He needs surgery here, and he needs it in the next 6 hours. Linda's voice turned sharp. Then you'll pay for it yourself? The time, the anesthesiologist, the nurses, the recovery room? That's $63,000, David. Are you writing that check? He wasn't. He couldn't. He had 3 kids, a mortgage, student loans still hanging over him from medical school. Linda gave him until noon to discharge Thomas Cooper. That wasn't a request. That was an order. For the next 4 hours, Dr. Matthews tried everything he could think of. He called every charity hospital in Philadelphia. He contacted veterans services organizations. He reached out to his medical school alumni association, begging for emergency funding. Every single door slammed shut. No beds available. No funding available. Forms take 6 weeks to process. Call back Monday. Sorry, we can't help. And while he was making those calls, Thomas Cooper's condition was getting worse. His intracranial pressure was rising. His responses were getting slower. His pupils were becoming less reactive. The clock was ticking, and Dr. Matthews was running out of options. At 11:47 a.m., he made his decision. He was going to save Thomas Cooper's life, even if it meant breaking the rules. He went into the hospital's computer system and forged an emergency surgery approval. He falsified the intake documents, claiming that Thomas had verbally provided insurance information that was being verified. It was fraud. It was forgery. It was completely illegal. But it gave him the authorization he needed to schedule the surgery for 2 p.m. that afternoon. His hands were shaking as he typed. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he could lose his medical license. He knew he could face criminal charges. But he also knew that if he did nothing, a man who'd survived Vietnam, who'd carried shrapnel in his leg from the Tet Offensive, who'd served his country with honor, that man would die alone on a hospital bed because he didn't have enough money in his bank account. Dr. Matthews couldn't live with that. So he clicked submit on the surgery request and prayed nobody would notice until it was too late to stop him. The surgery took 4.5 hours. It was complicated, delicate work. The neurosurgeon had to carefully drain the hematoma, relieve the pressure on Thomas's brain, and repair the damaged blood vessels without causing more bleeding. But it worked. By 6:30 that evening, Thomas Cooper was in post-op recovery. The surgery was a complete success. His brain pressure was normal. His vitals were stable. He was going to live. Dr. Matthews stood in the recovery room, watching Thomas sleep peacefully, and for just a moment, he felt like he'd won. He'd beaten the system. He'd saved a life. He'd kept his promise to that unconscious veteran on the gurney 12 hours earlier. For 12 beautiful hours, Dr. Matthews thought he'd gotten away with it. He thought nobody would ever find out what he'd done. He was wrong. The next morning, Dr. Matthews arrived at the hospital at 8:30 a.m. for his shift. Security was waiting for him at the entrance. Dr. Matthews, Administrator Ferguson, needs to see you immediately. Conference Room B. The moment he walked into that conference room and saw Linda Ferguson sitting at the head of a table, surrounded by 5 lawyers in expensive suits, he knew. The hospital's billing department had flagged the surgery. They discovered the forged documents. They traced everything back to him. And now they wanted blood. Linda's voice was calm, professional, and absolutely merciless. Dr. Matthews, you performed an unauthorized $63,000 surgery on an uninsured patient. You falsified hospital records. You committed fraud. These are criminal offenses. He tried to explain. He tried to tell them about Thomas Cooper, about his service, about the fact that he would have died without the surgery. The head lawyer cut him off. We understand you believe you were acting in the patient's best interest, but you broke the law. You cost this hospital $63,000. And worse, you've set a dangerous precedent. A dangerous precedent. That was the phrase that made Dr. Matthews' blood boil. The dangerous precedent wasn't fraud. It wasn't even the money. It was the idea that the hospital might be expected to save people's lives regardless of their ability to pay. That was the real threat. Linda delivered the final blow. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. And Dr. Matthews, the hospital is filing a lawsuit against you for the full cost of the surgery, our legal fees, and damages to our reputation. $2 million. $2 million. His house, his kids' college funds, his retirement savings, everything he'd worked for over 18 years. Gone. All because he saved a dying veteran's life. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody expected. That same evening, Thomas Cooper woke up fully conscious for the first time in days. The surgery had worked. His mind was clear. The bleeding had stopped. And when a nurse told him what had happened, what Dr. Matthews had done, what he'd sacrificed, Thomas Cooper made a phone call to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Within 24 hours, the story exploded. Local news picked it up. Then national news. Then CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Every major network in America was covering the story of the hospital that sued a doctor for saving a homeless veteran's life. The public outrage was immediate and overwhelming. A GoFundMe campaign was launched. Within 6 days, it raised $2.3 million, enough to cover the lawsuit and Dr. Matthews' legal fees. Veterans organizations rallied outside St. Mary's Hospital with protest signs. The hospital's donors started pulling their funding. Their public relations department was in full crisis mode. In exactly 2 weeks after firing Dr. Matthews, St. Mary's Hospital held a press conference where Linda Ferguson announced they were dropping the lawsuit and reevaluating their patient care policies. It was a corporate way of admitting they'd been wrong without actually saying the words. Dr. Matthews never got his job back at St. Mary's, but he didn't want it. 3 months later, he was hired by the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Philadelphia, where he still works today, treating the men and women who serve their country. Thomas Cooper made a full recovery. He now lives in veteran housing and volunteers at a homeless shelter twice a week, telling his story to anyone who'll listen. And Dr. David Matthews, he says he'd make the same decision again in a heartbeat. Because some things are worth more than money. Some promises are worth keeping, no matter the cost. And sometimes doing the right thing means losing everything and gaining something far more valuable. Your soul. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. We share true stories of ER doctors, firefighters, and first responders who risk everything to save lives. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Dr. Matthews' situation? And remember, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear scrubs. Sometimes they break the rules. And sometimes they pay the price for doing what's right. This is Life or Death Bodycam. See you in the next story.